let's get into push-ups. So push-ups start with a plank. So you want to make sure that first and foremost, your plank is spot on. Now, what we want to work on first is getting all the proper connections. And as you've seen in many of these exercise breakdowns, there's a lot of little cues that help us get to the bigger picture. So we're going to talk about those little cues first. So if I just go into my plank. Now, we want to have the shoulders stacked over the hands, the feet set hips width apart, and the ankles or the heels right over the balls of the feet. So this is going to be where your foundation is set, and a nice place for your foundation to be set. Oftentimes, what we'll see here is something like this. We're arching the back and we're kind of disconnecting from our glutes and our hamstrings. So we want to make sure, like in our bridge, that we've got that tailbone reach and that pubic bone zip. And it's not to say that you're tucking, right? So we don't maybe want to go as far as to tucking, but that you're in that neutral position, okay? So as you have that pelvis in the right position, hopefully it's also bringing your ribs into the right position, but it might not be. So that's where you also have to make sure you've got that rib funnel or that rib connection in and down so that we're keeping this core container contained, right? It's so easy to sneak those leaks out here or create that crunching here. Partly why our body will default to those positions is because when we're there, then the tissues or the joints sort of kind of rest off of each other. And then it's just this sort of balancing system where everything's just sort of leveraging off of each other. So that's why oftentimes when we go into the correct position, it doesn't feel easier. It doesn't mean that it's wrong though. This is that conversation you always want to have with yourself where it's like, is this correction helping me towards a better result? Sometimes it has shivers in the process. Sometimes you feel really weak or you get exhausted really quickly. But over time with consistency, as you get more conditioned, you're going to feel not only are you going to get stronger, but your endurance is going to build. And then the ease, it just feels effortless to be in a lot of these positions. So you just sort of got to make it through that learning curve. So back on track, what I like to do to prepare for my plank is just even to get into a good all fours position, right? So an all fours position, when we're in any of these forward facing positions, gravity is playing on us this way. So this is where you can finesse that tailbone reach and that pubic bone zip, not tucking it, right? But just kind of towards that feeling. You pull the ribs in and your chest and your back are nice and broad, right? So that we're not here and we're not here. Lats are connected. Feel your armpits down to your waist. And I always like to think like I'm pulling my arms. Feel like you're pulling your arms down towards the base of your body. And this is the way your upper body can really facilitate the plank or the all fours hover. So here, if I'm just doing, for example, an all fours hover, I would just come on up and just find my hover. And then from here, the idea is that you should just be able to step back and there's your plank, right? Not here, you're right into it. So you should feel your quads active, your shins are active a bit, your heels are reaching back, your glutes are active. And like I mentioned before, when we have this proper positioning of our pelvis, we're gonna have the right connection all the way through, and the glutes and the abs will be there. You don't have to necessarily work for them extra. Okay, and then while you're there and you're breathing, you will get a lot out of this. You will get a lot out of this exercise. You could play with going a little higher, right? Typically, we don't want to end up here just sort of dumped down. But there's a range, so there's not like one perfect position. There's a little range in there. As your heels are reaching back, keep reaching your head or the crown of your head and your heart forward. Now see, that just made me quiver like crazy, just reaching out through the top of my head, right? So this alone, fabulous exercise. All fours hover, holding that, plank, holding that. And then once that feels good, you can start to add your push-ups. Now, there's a ton of variations to push-ups. What I will say, kind of like how I like to teach the roll-up, when you're doing a roll-up, you're working those incremental degrees of roll down. Here, you can work incremental elbow bends to start to lower down very slowly. There's no rule that says that you have to get down all the way and then you have to get up, yeah? So you can do incremental from top to bottom, or you can do incremental from bottom to top. And what I mean by that is from this plank position, you can do teeny tiny little bends and straightens, either wide or straight back. Remember, you're keeping your chest and your back wide, so you don't want to do your push-ups from your neck and from like your shoulders, right? So that's a different little movement or exercise. You're isolating now the movement in your elbows, and that's what's creating the up and down in your body. So I could work 2 inches down, I could work 3 inches down, or very low to the ground. Now, what I could also do is start my push-up from the ground. And I have my hands set by the sides of my chest. And I like to do what's called a pretend push-up. So I would set up. I know what a plank feels like, so I know what I need up there. So now what do I need to get there, right? So I set it all up. I know what plank feels like. And then here, I'm just gonna pretend to hover. I'm just gonna start pushing into the floor. And then relax. And then I push into the floor. I pretend to push up. And then I relax. Then to my pretend push-up, I can start to add little hovers. So maybe this first one, I'm gonna hover 1 inch off the floor. And then you go down. You don't have to hold it very long. Over time you could, but again, now I'm gonna 2 inches. Right? And I'm doing my best to not leave this behind, right? I'm trying not to peel myself up, which could be a version, but in this variation, I really wanna come up straight from head to heels. So then I do my all fours or my plank hover, and I'm going to pretend and then hover and then lower. And then over time, you could get higher and higher.